Good morning. My name is Kurt Garfield, pastor of the Scipio Baptist Church. And I just want to thank all of you this morning for joining me in this morning's devotions. I, I had a situation the other day, and you've probably been faced with the same situation too, one time or another. Have you ever had that situation where the phone will be ringing, especially a home phone or a business phone, the ones with the loud rings, and it just rings and rings and rings and rings, and people be standing around and nobody answers it as if they know that the call is not for them, or they act like they don't even hear it. And I was in the donut shop the other morning, and yes, by the way, it was for my grandson, Sister Wanda. So, okay, let's stay on that point. And the phone in the donut shop was ringing and ringing and ringing, so to the point that when she came around to serving me, I asked her, I said, would you like to take that call? And it, even though I knew that the call wasn't for me, I wanted to just go over there and just pick it up and just answer it because it was ringing so much. But I know you can't answer other people's calls. But you remember back in the day, there used to be party lines. Yeah, I remember those party lines back in the day. One call was for Mr. Jones, and two calls was for your house, and three calls was for that person that's never home, and they get calls all through the night, disturbing your sleep. Yeah, you remember them party lines. Which brings me to our devotion for this morning. It's 1 Samuel 3. Let me read that to you. 1 Samuel 3. And I'm going to start at the first verse. And it says, the boy Samuel ministered before the Lord unto Eli. In those days the word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. One night Eli, whose eyes were becoming so weak that he could barely see, was lying down in his usual place. The lamp of God has not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called Samuel. Samuel answered, here I am. And he ran to Eli and says, here I am, you called? But Eli says, I did not call you. Go back and lie down. So he went and lied down. Again, the Lord called Samuel. And Samuel got up, went to Eli and says, here I am, you called? My son, Eli says, I did not call you. Go back and lie down. Now Samuel did not listen. Samuel did not yet know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. The Lord called Samuel a third time, and Samuel got up and went to Eli and says, here I am, you called. Then Eli realized, a man of God, realized that the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, he says, go and lie down. And if you hear the call, say, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. So Samuel went and lied down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling as the other times, Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel says, speak, for your servant is listening. Like Samuel, God is calling so many of you, but we do not recognize the call. We do not recognize who's calling. And the open part about this is that and you must heed this. You must heed this part right here, that God called Samuel before Samuel even knew God. God called him before he even knew who he was, the voice. Samuel did not recognize the voice of God. That kind of eliminates your excuse for not answering the call of God on your life, don't it? But Pastor, yeah, I hear you them excuses. But Pastor, I'm not a preacher. I'm not saying that God's calling you to preach. But Pastor, I'm not a deacon. I'm not saying that God is calling you to deacon. I'm not a missionary. I'm not saying that God's calling you to go into the mission field. Well, I'm not a speaker either. Well, I'm like this. If you got a mouth, answer the call, right? This is how it is. We make up so many excuses for not answering the call, and yet at the same time, we're frustrating other people because God is still calling you. I remember the call of God on my life. Ironic, yesterday was Valentine's Day, and it was 36 years ago yesterday that God called me into the ministry. 36 years ago yesterday, God called me into the ministry. And I'm so excited that I answered that call. And when God called me, understand this, I was not a young deacon in the church. I was not a preacher in the church. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you, when God called me, I was in a place that I shouldn't have been, fixing to do something that I shouldn't have done. And I remember just about a few weeks before that, my mother told me, she says, you fixing to get a call. I'm like, okay. And she says, and when you get that call, it's fixing to be from God. I'm like, okay. You know, I'm not trying to hear all that. But she says, but when God calls you, you go somewhere, you fall down on your knees, and you say, God, here I am. And it was about 3 weeks later. You know, I remember what she said, but I'm like, okay, whatever, you know. And when I was in the midst of my sins, doing crazy things, God called me. And trust me, when he calls you, you know. There's a feeling like no other feeling. There's a revelation, I can't even describe it. But you know it's not natural. And when God calls you, answer the call. Be like Samuel. Here I am, Lord, your servant. Speak. Answer the call. God woke me up this morning to tell you he's fixing to call you. For whatever reason it is, answer the call. I'm Kurt Garfield, pastor of Scipio Baptist Church. Be blessed until we meet again.